Okay, let me RT that.
Hello. So we are back to finish talking about the BooktubeSFF Award nominees from August. I'm Nicole, and it's my fault because my computer is old and cranky and doesn't really like the Google Hangouts app anymore. So when I died, everybody else died with me. So yeah, so we are going to get started with Rat Queen, which is, I guess, where you all left off. So maybe, I don't know, do we want to kill time for a second, just until everybody, just until people?
Would be a good idea. I've just retweeted the tweet, so.
I also put a
You can just be like,
put a comment in the comment thread of the previous stream that you were about to do a new, tweet a new link. So
that was smart.
So hopefully people there will go, yeah, that's fine, whatever.
So yeah, so what did you guys...
Everyone's confused now. They're all like, it's on Elizabeth's channel. I'm like, no, it's not. no, come here. But hopefully they'll find it. It's all good.
What were the concluding thoughts on Half a King after I fell away?
It was fun, but not mind-blowing. We all enjoyed it a lot, but it wasn't mind-blowing.
Yeah, we got a kick out of it, but it wasn't like high literature, you know.
Okay.
I don't think that was the aim.
Yeah.
No,
probably not. It did exactly what it said on the tin. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it was enjoyable, definitely.
Yes, we're sorry for confusing you, everybody who's watching or not watching.
Yeah, I don't know if we're... let me go to the actual stream. A few people have joined us.
What were the concluding thoughts on Half a King after I fell
It
away?
was fun, but not mind-blowing.
Okay.
That was weird. Okay, so do you guys want to start talking about Rat Queens then? So we don't have too much downtime here?
Yeah.
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 Okay. What were we saying? Did you want to do the synopsis again, vaguely?
Yeah, probably a good idea.
So this is a graphic novel, a bunch of a group of mercenary women who go fight things, and it's very bloody and graphic, and there's lots of sex and drugs and violence, and I think it's amazing.
Yeah, we loved it.
But not everybody agrees, so that's okay. But so yeah, it's basically, it's like every D&D campaign that I ever played, where you like make it to level 7 and you can kind of actually do things, and then you're like, we're gonna all go get drunk. That sounds like a great plan. That's basically comic book.
It's like every tavern scene from a D&D campaign ever.
Yeah.
Yes, it's fantastic. I think, again, like we were talking about with The Martian, this one is all about the characters, who are fantastic.
Yes.
They're just wonderful. Like, and the art style, the way they're drawn is brilliant. Like, I remember looking at, like, Violet.
That's exactly what I just got.
Yeah, look! I also walked into the room with my partner and was like, look, she's badass and she has thighs.
Yeah, they are pretty cool, unique women, individual. They have a fleshed out character, they feel believable, they're actual people, not just like fantasy women who are unreachable or untouchable, they're actual people. So I enjoyed that about them a lot.
Yeah.
They're quite down to earth as well, but a little bit crazy.
Yeah, it was women getting to do the fun, normal stuff, like getting pissed and like having parties and then like being like, oh, the next day and then going and fighting things, and it was just like, yes.
Yes.
So yeah.
It is. We didn't. I think a couple people mentioned this in the Goodreads that this one is also one of those that really hasn't resonated with people if they don't really like the sex and drugs mostly.
Yeah.
It's not suitable for children, and I think some people definitely come into comic books with the preconceived notion that, you know, it's gonna be family friendly, and this is not. So.
Well, anybody who thinks that, the whole comics should be kid stuff thing is about 40 years late to the discussion.
Yeah.
So but yeah.
A lot of it
I liked this. I liked it a lot more than I was expecting to. I just sort of went into it going, okay, but I liked it. It was cute. It was a fun read. I do think though that it's take out all the F-bombs and the mayhem, and what have you got? I don't really know that there's no depth to speak of in any of this. I didn't think, but but the sense of humor is cute. It's sort of like a combination of maybe like Borderlands snark with South Park level language. I think perhaps though it leans a little too heavily on that. It's like, look how many we can swear more than the Quentin Tarantino film. Because like I said, the storyline, it's.
Yeah, I felt the same as you actually, Thomas. Like I know Nicole and Elizabeth loved it. I was more on the liked it. The second one I actually liked more, which I think you guys didn't as much, but I did. So. Yeah,
I wouldn't mind. I mean, I am willing. I'm certainly interested in reading the second volume of it. Yeah, but I think that in terms of the story, again, unless you're just a complete idiot, it's not exactly too difficult to find out who's behind this big plot that they're trying to solve. But I did, in terms of the comedy writing, yeah, I think there's again certainly more energy expended upon attitude, rather than actual story. But there are cute character moments. There are good lines. There are funny little bits about just the one little soldier on the wall who's always giving everything away. Nice one, Gary. I liked Gary. I liked that one of them. You have one of these badass mercenaries, but then she ends up at a party and she has social anxiety, and so she curls up with a book in a corner and things like that. So little witty moments like that. I thought were a bunch of fun.
Yeah.
I agree. Being over the top in terms of like swearing or sex or whatever, that's very trendy in like comics and graphic novels right now. I don't know how long that'll be around, because there was a very long period of time, like for people who haven't like looked at comics history in depth, there was a very long period of time where there was a lot of censorship in the comics industry, and so there was not really any swearing or anything like that. And so more recently, like in the past 20 years, since that's I guess been gaining acceptability, and now people just like go all out. So I think it's very trendy to kind of like go all out in terms of
honestly, other than like the drugs, I didn't notice this being very sweary, but I do swear a lot, so maybe that's it. But other than that, there was nothing in this that I found terribly shocking compared to anything else, especially something like this. This is much less graphic and gruesome.
Yeah.
And this one actually is marketed at kids.
That's true.
Well, again, I think in terms of just the content and in context of comics, again, this is just a case of mainstream comics publishing sort of being a little bit late to the party. The small press comics, the independent comics. Alternative comics have been dealing with adult themes, adult language, for decades, and but the mainstream publishers, and this comes from Image, which is one of the one of the top, they've been a little bit slow to follow up. This isn't a superhero comic, but we are now seeing, take Deadpool for example, right? Just this foul-mouthed superhero parody from Marvel, right? And took ages for them to sort of work their way towards doing that sort of thing. So I think this is definitely this kind of adult foul-mouthed content is newish, I'm sure, for mainstream comics. But it's actually been around a long time. It was harder to find. It was not coming from the mainstream, until recently. So, but I like Drag Queens. It was cute. It was lots of fun. I thought there were I could maybe see some of the influences there. Who's the little girl?
Betty.
Yeah. So I liked her a whole bunch.
So cute.
Yeah, she was a doll, but I kind of thought I saw part of like Tiny Tina from the Borderlands games in her. If you're familiar with those games, I thought that may have been a partial inspiration for the character, which is fine. If you're going to be inspired by good stuff. But it was a better read than I was expecting. So.
Yeah, it was meant to be fun, and it was fun, I think, is the main thing. And just, as a girl reading it was great. It made me very happy.
Very girl power. Love that. Like that. Yeah, no, I found it really fun. I I agree with Thomas that the plot was what let it down for me, was that it was quite easy to see what was going to happen. But I think it was more about the characters, and that was intentional, really. So
Yeah,
I don't
I think
that
the plot
let
is
it
very
down.
much like...
The plot is very much a sideline to like these awesome characters. So yeah, I think if you think about it in that way, it does the job of the characters very well. I think.
I'm curious why you like the second one better. I did not like the first one better. So I'm
I
kind of
like
curious.
the second one better because you get a bit more plot. Like there's more of a plot, and so we already knew the characters from the first one. And I think I like more of a balance between my plot and characters, whereas the first one was a lot more characters and plot. The second one's a bit more balanced, so I prefer that one.
But we can't judge that one.
No, that one's not in the awards, so it doesn't count. But you can go and read it anyway if you want.
Yeah, totally go and read it.
Definitely go read it. But yeah, we're only judging the first. So.
Yeah, I thought all the characters were likable. I don't know that I would necessarily agree there's much to them in the way of substance, but they're likable. They're lots of fun. And again, it is good to see, you know, especially in this day and age when there's this whole attitude of, oh, yes, female characters won't sell and no one likes the, you know, the just, it's a real kind of middle finger to just sexism in genre fiction in general to have a book like this out there, and that alone just makes it worth, you know, having around.
Yeah,
having around.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you guys want to move on to the slow regard of silent things, because I feel like that's the one we're probably gonna spend the most time
split on,
talking about.
Well, we'll certainly have some talking about it.
Thomas, would you like to do
Thomas,
synopsis?
you go for it.
Would I like to synopsize the slow regard? Would I like to do that?
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's basically 150 pages of a girl doing feng shui in a sewer.
That's pretty much it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it is. It's one of those where you're. But it's funny because, you know, when it's done, when you get through it, and there's this long afterword by Patrick Rothfuss where he basically spends about 6 or 7 pages apologizing profusely for the story you just read, which I thought was all right. So at least he knew what was up, and and he says this was a trunk story. Which is something every author kind of has at some point. There's a narrative that you kind of got to get out of your system. And I can see that if this was just a chance for him to sort of spend some time with this character who is a side character in his main series, to sort of be in her head, in her world for a little bit, I can see how as a writer it would have been very satisfying for him, just having the experience of writing this tale and just kind of being her for a bit. But I don't know that it's necessarily something that. Certainly for me, in any case, it wasn't. He says that some readers found her relatable, which I'm baffled by. I mean, is there anyone out there who is really like this chick? Do you sit there saying?
Yeah, I think so. Lots of people are pretty neurodiverse. Like,
I guess so. Yeah, but maybe there's someone out there who's like, oh, my hairbrush is really, really stressed out being on my vanity like that. I should put it on my dresser and maybe tilt it to the northeast slightly. And now it's happy and smiling. And that's just sort of. Yeah.
I don't know that it works exactly like that, but I've known some pretty OCD, like seriously OCD people in my life, and that is
yeah.
I'm gonna put a cup on the floor on its side because that is where it belongs.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, shall we actually synopsize it so people understand?
Yeah. And and I'm gonna say if the story speaks to anyone on that level, then that's great, and I'm glad it communicates to you on that level.
But it is, how they would have got to it, I'm not sure. This book, not like that.
No.
So first
a character study, isn't it?
Yeah, The Name of the Wind. And the main character in this Slow Regard of Silent Things, I'm pointing at it as though you can see what I'm pointing at. I'm looking at Caitlin. And she was in that, and now she's the main character in Slow Regard of Silent Things, and it's a study of her for a week. No one can see that unless you make noise.
Okay, look, people, this is Ori. She's the main character in this book.
Yeah.
Is that loud enough?
Yes. That was fine. Yes.
Yes.
Excellent.
And we follow her for a week as she does what she does.
What she does, which is quite random.
And so Ori was like a student at the magical university, which is where part of the Name of the Wind takes place. And she kind of has some sort of mental breakdown, and now she's living in what she calls the Underthing, which is just like all these rooms that are underneath the university that have like sunk into the ground.
Yeah, it's like an abandoned subterranean city from an earlier age.
Yeah, the university.
Yeah, and there's like the plumbing goes through there, and there's all kinds of strange abandoned cellars or like what used to be buildings and things. And she goes about her life there and is a bit strange, but like in very beautiful ways.
I really like this, actually. I don't know if I connected with Ori necessarily, but I thought in terms of giving us more of Ori and telling us about her life, it really did that. And I think she is a really weird character, definitely. But I love the sort of whimsical feel of it, and the sort of I love the illustrations as well. I think they really enhanced it. I said that on the Goodreads group because quite a few people listened to it on audiobook, which I know you did, Elizabeth. Yes. And I said to Elizabeth, I was like, I think you might be missing out because the illustrations really help the book, which doesn't necessarily credit Patrick Rothfuss that much, but the illustrations I enjoyed a lot. So personally, they enhanced it for me a lot. But I like the sort of whimsical nature of Ori and the fact that she does sort of potter around doing these things, and the next day she'll come back and she'll change it because she thinks, oh, it's not quite right. And it's a bit repetitive, and there are moments where I was like, why did you do that? But I still really enjoyed it in terms of a character study. I personally enjoyed it. So.
I liked it as a study in like mental health and the character.
Yeah.
I did not feel like it justified a $8.99 hardback.
$12.99.
$12.99.
Yeah.
I don't know what the American price is. It's like a little hardback.
It's the same as a hardback book because you can only get it in hardback. So
I do think the physical book is very nice. Like I have the U.S. edition, which isn't here, but like the way it's put together, like the dust jacket is nice, and the actual book is nice, and having the illustrations inside is very pretty, and like the typography is laid out very well. Like it's a very pretty book.
Yeah.
Like I think the people who put it together did a really good job. Just saying.
Yeah. And I think she's a fascinating character. Like, I loved finding out more about her as a person, but I hated that she revolved around Quoth. Because screw him, I don't want to know about him. Her entire life, she's interesting. We're meant to be finding out about her, and all the time she's going, he will be here in 5 days. He will be here in 4 days. It's like, what, does she not have a personality? Did she not exist before he found her?
I think it's more of a fixation, isn't it, with her? It's like she probably did have a personality before he came along, and then he comes along and she's just fixated on him, and that's all she can think about.
If that's the case, you certainly don't get that from reading Slow Regard. That was.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
No, but she's strong and powerful and interesting. She knows things he doesn't. Like she's in tune with the magic.
That's where I don't know. I'm not seeing this insight into her character that I guess some of you are seeing. I didn't really learn anything at all about her, other than she lives underground and she's a bit of a manic pixie dream girl. She's kind of a child, and she's got that inner child, which is really all she is, and she's the kind of person who, if she sees a little bauble that delights her, she dances around the room in a circle when she's happy, things like that. I sort of like, okay, so when I was reading it, I was thinking to myself, is this girl's name Ori or Zooey? I keep losing track. And of course, her main focus, the big thing that her entire week is building up to, is this visit from Kvothe, and which means that again, she's really fixated on him. He is kind of her motive for doing things, and so at the end of the day, it all comes to be about how he's off doing his adventures, being the hero guy, and he's underground making house for him, and that's and being his manic pixie dream girl, and that was like that, and that was it. There was really nothing. There's nothing to her as a personality beyond that. I don't think.
It might have been really interesting to see her before she had met Kvothe. If he'd focused on her before they'd met each other,
Yeah. Now,
And
why?
this story,
Why not?
that would have
tell-
been probably a lot more interesting. I can see where you're
Why
coming
not
from with that.
Why not tell that story? Why not tell the story of how Ori became this weird?
I think that's what a lot of people thought this was going to be
Yeah.
when they picked it up.
Going from a student with a relatively normal life in this college to being someone who lives underground alone, seems to be perfectly happy there, interacts with inanimate objects like they have personality. You know, there's no indication of what turned her into that in this story, and that could have been a story to tell.
It's true.
But he didn't. So, you know, of all the stories he could have told about Ori, he chose to tell the wrong one. But
Yeah,
I think that's
I liked that it was just a picture of how she is. It was just that Patrick Rothfuss, like made her focus on him when there was no reason for it except when maybe on the day or the day before he arrived. But it was every day. It was literally her countdown every day.
the week.
Yeah.
And it was like there was no need for that.
I think the week-long framing structure, I think that this is really a failure in framing structure. Like, I do really like the character study aspect of the book, but I think, or of the novella, but I think the failure in this novella is in terms of length and the way it's structured. And that the structure of having an entire week and having the week revolve around Cove it's not a strong structure, and it's not interesting enough to maintain the length of the story. So I think if he wanted to tell a character story, I think character studies work just fine if it's, a short story, if it's like a 5,000-word short story. Like, I think he could have told the basics of what's going on in Ori's character and her daily life in a much shorter story, but that he expanded it to meet this week-long framework and to kind of revolve around Cove. And I think that's where things kind of go wrong, is that it's too much of a time, it's too long of a time period for us to spend in her head. Like, we understand her character, and then he kind of just needs more stuff to fill the time, and he kind of ends up filling it with Quoth, which isn't that interesting. I think for me at least, that's the uninteresting part of the story, is the time that she spends thinking about Quoth. Like, the parts that have Ori are actually pretty interesting, but then when her world is really revolving around Quoth, it's just not as interesting to me. Like, I'm interested in seeing her wander around the Underthing and like find things and try and find.
Yeah.
But not for 150 pages.
Well, if you think about it, the illustrations take up a fair chunk, so it's probably not 150 pages if you were to take out the illustrations, because there are quite a few that are full-page ones. So.
Yeah, so it's probably, total it's probably what, like 120 pages of actual writing. Which is still, that's still a fairly long novella.
Still a long novella.
Yeah.
But I don't know. This is anyone who's read my site for a while knows that I'm not a Patrick Rothfuss partisan, to say the least. And I think that I don't know. In a sense, this was I disliked this book, but I can't say I was disappointed by it, because I already sort of have an assessment of Rothfuss as being a writer who is perfectly happy to, just meander aimlessly at great length. He did it for 1,000 pages in The Wise Man's Fear, so, what's to stop him doing it 150 pages here? I don't think that... I think that he does not have a very good skill at structuring plots, and I think a lot of it is just... He seems to come from the I'm making it up as I go school of writing. Maybe this is all sort of pointing somewhere eventually, this grand epic that he has. But at the moment, I'm not really seeing it. And so all I'm really seeing in Slow Regard is stuff that I've kind of been critical of him for doing already. And I'd love for the third King Killer book to completely prove me wrong, and so that, have him just reveal, hi, this was my big plan all along, and here's where I was headed with all of this. But I can't. This didn't do anything to rehabilitate an opinion of Rothfuss that I already had.
Yeah. I liked it. It was a look into a beautiful and scary brain in the way that like diverse brains are, and he has a very lyrical way of writing, and that was nice. But yeah, I had a lot of issues with it other than that.
Yeah, I think if you take it just as character study and just as lots of lyrical bits of writing strung together with some lovely illustrations, that's what it is at the end of the day. It's like those three things combined is what this book is. If you like that, you're going to like the book. if you don't like that, you're not gonna like it.
Yeah.
So, it's very hit and miss. Like, I've seen people who hate it, and I've seen people who adore it. So, it was always going to be a controversial one, I think. And it was interesting seeing everyone's thoughts, because everyone in the Goodreads group had really different opinions as well.
Yeah.
I have to say, because I mean, even on those scales, it didn't really work for me either. Because again, as a character study, I don't really feel like I had all that much insight into Ori. And in terms of his lyrical writing, I don't know. I thought a lot of it just came across as gibberish to me. Just wordplay that was kind of cloying and cute, and as if, Pat's read a few Neil Gaiman stories and said, "Oh, okay, I can do that." And it didn't come across as just, I don't know. Didn't care for it across the board. I'll just put it that way. But I'll be doing I'll be posting a review on my channel on Monday of the whole thing. I'll have my thoughts organized.
Sounds good.
And as Caitlin said, this is one of those that's been like really controversial. Even if you just like look at the reviews for it, like on its Goodreads page, there's some very widespread.
Yeah. So that's but that's fine. That's.
I think he knew that when he released it as well. Mm-hmm. Like when he released it, he did a lot of interviews before he released it, sort of talking about the fact that he didn't think everyone was going to like this, and that's true. I think he got that spot on. Not everyone does.
He even kept that back bit in that note about, justifying it, almost saying, some people will appreciate it, so it's for them, and fair enough. Like, people who like 20 pages of making soap. And I actually enjoyed the 20 pages.
I thought that was great.
But, so actually those bits were really interesting, because that was like the bits in I Love the Name of the Wind, like when I went to the library and was studying, and I was like, keep doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
We had a question about it from Michael at Bitten by a Radioactive Book, who said, do you think that authors like Rothfuss are giving too much credit by publishers due to their success? I don't know about too much credit.
I mean, I think I'm gonna like
famous.
They knew it would make money. So.
To like the whole issue of tie-in novellas, just in general. Like, I'm just gonna expand that question and just be like, tie-in novellas. I don't know about them. Just in general, like I feel like some of them are just total cash grabs. Like, I'm a successful author and the publisher knows this will sell, so we're gonna market and sell it. But sometimes I think they really do add something to the story. So I'm very torn on the whole tie-in novella trend. And
I'm good with the tie-in stories published on like the author's website or something, like as an ebook or something cheap or free, expanding on the universe if you want, like this was or could have been, except it was $12.99.
Yeah.
Because that's what's going to happen. The minute you are a #1 New York Times bestseller, your publisher is going to go for that cash grab. So this is this got the release and the edition that it did because of who he is and because of his success. There's no question.
Yeah, and it's not the publishers giving him too much credit. It's them knowing damn well they can make a lot of money for him and them doing
Which they did, obviously.
They did.
Yeah.
Perfectly logical in terms of book selling.
Yeah, I mean, I watched a couple of interviews with him talking about it, and he said that he'd written it and he'd shown it to a couple of people, and it was just a private thing for him that he wrote it, and he showed it to a couple of his friends and stuff, and they really liked it, and then because of their reaction, he was like, oh, maybe I could publish this, but he took it to his publishers and they really liked it, but then there were some weird reactions that he got as well, and so he was really torn up about whether or not to publish it. And then I think they talked him into it in the end, and he went for it, obviously, sort of with this big disclaimer added on, like, hate me, guys, sorry.
I think it's fine, if he wants to publish it and people want to buy it, and, that's enough.
Why not?
You say that about anyone and anything,
Yeah, exactly. You want to publish it, you want to buy it.
Yeah, write your story, and if you have an audience for it, then by all means find that audience and share with them. That's
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was still cack. Sorry, I just had to slip that in there.
So we had a question from Chris over on Twitter, which was, for all the works read this month, did you find anything new or groundbreaking in them worth sharing? So I guess not quite what was your favorite, but which one do you think was the most groundbreaking or unique, maybe?
Just
I
this
think they
one?
all did different things. I'm not necessarily. Yeah, just this month.
Yeah. Yes, they don't want.
I actually, even though I didn't
think-
like it as much, I
yeah.
feel like Station 11 probably was the most unique in the way it kind of twisted existing genre tropes. And even though that didn't work for me, I do think it had the most, I guess, groundbreaking ideas.
Original.
Yeah, most original
Yeah.
ideas. That's what I'm looking
Because it
for.
was
Yeah.
literary fiction with science, using science fiction's tropes. That was so. It was like, let's do something unusual, because she
Yeah,
wasn't
it was
coming at it from the like,
Yeah, it was.
science caused the apocalypse. Let's look at the science sort of thing.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
and I would also say again the accessibility of The
Of The
Martian. I mean,
Martian, yeah.
you wouldn't think that. Yeah, of course, this book is a massive bestseller. You don't tend to think of what's commercially successful as also perhaps being innovative or groundbreaking. But as we talked about earlier, hard science fiction is not generally a mass readership, mass appeal genre. And it speaks its own language for the most part, and it tends to go towards that very intellectualized readership among science fiction fandom. And so to be able to tell that kind of story in such a way that does bring more readers into the genre, I think that's very much moving things forward. So
Yeah, that is astonishingly good work, and it's done amazing things for increasing interest in space exploration, travel, and NASA, and really important, good things that are going on at the moment with space travel, which a lot of science fiction doesn't necessarily do. It may inspire individuals to go into it, and maybe work towards engineering or something, or just take an interest. But this has actively gotten people supporting what's going on now and excited about it, because. And then, the movie is partnering up with the actual NASA stuff that's going on with the trip to Mars stuff, and it's just brilliant. I haven't seen a science fiction book do that for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I would have said The Martian as well, so I agree. 100%.
All right. So, any other questions, or do you guys want to wrap it up on that note?
If we don't have any other questions,
I
could just...
I'll just send up a flare real quick to see if anyone else has some closing questions for us, maybe.
Yeah, let's give people a few minutes.
Ask us interesting things.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, and if anybody wants to know anything about next month, we should probably, while we have the time, talk about next month. So September's books are Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson. So that is going to take a while
Get started.
to read. So get started
Start it on
now.
the first day.
Yeah, just start as soon as you can. Start last year. It's big. It's very big, and I haven't started it yet, and I'm scared.
I liked it though.
Yeah, we're also reading Crest by Marissa Meyer, and Saga number 3. So if you haven't read Saga 1 and 2, go do that.
Yeah.
It won't take you long.
Yeah, that won't take you long.
So that's two nominees and already 4 books that a lot of people are going to have to read.
Yeah.
Well, and the first two in Cinder's Lunar
Crest is the
Chronicles,
third book in the Lunar Chronicles. Do you guys want to talk about the first 2 books? I know Elizabeth has been reading them just recently.
I haven't read them yet.
And then also we've got The Strange Library by Haruki Murakami, and The Mika and the All-Seeing Eye. I can't remember who the author is.
Cressel.
There you go. Cressel. And that last one, is available for free online because it's actually an actual short story.
Yeah, it's an EPUB, so it's on Clark's World.
Yeah. So you can go and get that one for free, which is nice.
Yes, it's right there on their site.
Yep. So the first 2 books in the Lunar Chronicles.
Content. Let's do the pre-reading.
I've done the pre-reading.
I'll sit back and enjoy this.
So I read Cinder a couple of weeks ago, which is kind of it's a retelling of Cinderella, but with cyborgs and it's in the future and stuff. And I thought that one was okay. I liked it, but I didn't love it. It's a very faithful retelling.
Oh no. Maybe we won't do the pre-reading.
Wait. Oh, Nicole?
No, I think that's it. Well, that might be the
Did we
end.
lose her? Hang on. Uh-oh. Okay.
Technical problems.
Well, if that is the end, then
Thank you all
bye,
for
guys.
watching.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Live,
as
but
long
we'll
as-
keep talking until like it disappears again.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm still seeing live, so.
Yeah,
Love it.
we'll just keep going until it disappears, and then that will be it.
But yes, thank you to everyone who joined us up until this point and stuck with us through the technical difficulties that we had and managed to carry on watching. We love you all, and
Yes.
we
I
hope
think
you'll all
we
join
agreed
us.
that the end of September 1, Thomas is going to host, so hopefully we will have slightly less of technical fun.
Right.
Fingers crossed,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So let's do, what were we talking about? Cinder and Scarlet. So she was saying it's quite a faithful retelling of Cinderella, except in the future and with cyborgs and this whole other plot line about the moon and stuff. So interesting. But then the next one, Scarlet, is Red Riding Hood and the wolf and stuff, but it continues the Cinderella plot line as well. So it ended with a cliffhanger, like, oh, the evil sort of person and stuff is doing things, and will they escape? And they escape into the second book. So you get half of the Red Riding Hood story and half of this continuing, overarching, like, story that's going to go the whole length of the series. And so it felt like very split. And I felt like it made Scarlet like a weaker book because you got a lot less of Scarlet's story. And then they joined together at the end, and it was like, okay, now they're all together, we can continue. And then there's going to be like another character in Cress.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I need to read them. Need to get on that.
And then the final book, I think, comes out this fall sometime. It's called...
Yeah, there's already a fourth, and then there's going to be a fifth. And that
total.
would be it.
All right.
So yeah, that's what happened. So those are the two prequel books. So I thought 2 was a weaker one, but apparently Cress is much better. Like that was the weakest one, was the second one. So I've read the first couple pages of Cress, and I'm already like happier with it than I was with Scarlet.
Okay. So that's
we'll
see.
We'll see.
That's an interesting recommendation. First 2 pages of this book are better than the entire previous book.
I mean, we'll see as it goes along.
Wow.
What else have we got?
She's not going to try and join back, so
yeah. We'll just keep going and
rambling.
Till the little yellow button goes off.
Have
the
either
other
of
one
you
is
read
Way of
the
Kings,
first two?
of course.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That one's a massive one. It's a
Mm-hmm.
tricky one.
Yeah.
It was 1,124 pages of pre-reading, and those are 1,124 pages of tiny little writing.
Yes.
And honestly, it really did feel like a prequel, even though it's not. It's book 1. It really did feel like setting up for 1,000 pages.
Yeah, it introduces a lot of stuff. So I think
there were definite bits.
There's a lot.
You felt the length of the story. You really felt the length. In The Way of Kings.
I mean,
I loved
you reading.
I liked it.
I loved them. I gave them both 5 stars. I literally
You're
loved
not meant to talk about book 2 yet.
Yeah.
They already know. I've reviewed it on my channel. People know. But it's one of my most watched videos. But,
mine's probably my highest viewed review video.
Yeah, I think it's the same with me.
Yeah.
I like them both. But I know you had some issues.
Yeah.
I think you'll like the second one better, though.
Yeah. I like them both, and I do like the second one much better. I think the second one's a considerable improvement. I still, on the whole, not liking the series as much, in toto as I did the Mistborn trilogy, but I am liking it, and I think that if he keeps this trajectory, it's Stormlight Archive will end up probably like being his major work. But I do like them.
Yeah, at first I found the world kind of jarring because it felt like too many fantasy things at once. I mentioned that in my review, like every fantasy thing, and then there was like giant crabs as well, and I was a bit like, okay, that just giant stone crabs and fairies, and I was like, that's too much, too much. But somehow it kind of, you know, you get used to it, and then I was like, yeah, obviously, and actually he kind of played on it, and it got very interesting. So yeah, I mean, points to him. He never writes a bad book. Just felt a bit long.
Yeah. I did like, you know, among most fans of it, though, I found that, you know, everyone talks about Kaladin's storyline, and you know, it's the big, and for me, that was actually the least interesting part of Way of Kings. What I really liked was Shellen's story, and to have, you know, these, you know, the women in the story being the scholars and you know, doing the intellectual pursuits. I liked her and I liked Fellowson together, their interactions.
Yes.
So to me, those were the best scenes in Way of Kings. And then you would get back to the guys, you know, trying to do the bridge and the battle, and we're back in sort of routine epic fantasy territory.
I got really frustrated because there's like sections to the book, so like